Hey guys, Becky here with Teach at Home. Today I'm just going to give a review of the HSLDA Academy class my son took this year. He just recently finished up English 1. I think it's like an introduction to literature and writing or something along those lines. First of all, I'd like to say I really liked the book selections and what they were going to do with the literature. It just looked like the kind of English class I had taken in high school, where you read something and then you kind of analyze it and then you do writing about it. So I liked the variety of books they offered, and I liked that there were also like different levels. So technically, if we continued with them, he could go all the way through high school and have kind of the same quality English classes all the way up through, and then it would have been English 1, English 2, English 3, and then that would have been like kind of like introduction, and then I think English 2 is world literature, and then English 3 is American literature, and then senior year would be AP English, which would be really nice for him to take. So I really like the way the classes are laid out. And then I also liked that there were different class times. I think most of them were set in Eastern time, Pacific, so you just gotta be careful when you're signing up that you're making sure what time zone they have it listed in. We were able to get a Tuesday morning class. I think it was like, it started at 9:30, so it wasn't too early, and it wasn't like later in the day where it would break up our day or be something we have to work around during the day. It was always the first thing he would do for school on Tuesday mornings, and I really liked that. It also gave me time during his English class for me to get some other work done around the house while he was engaged in his English class. The classes overall, the online part, I thought it was okay. The teacher was always, doing a lot of talking and explaining and introductory info and about like the authors and more information about the book. And I know my son was telling me they were talking about like symbolism and things like that. The thing I don't like about the way a lot of these online classes work is they have the open chat going the entire time the class is going, because I understand like the kids have to be able to talk so they can ask questions and things, but my son sees that as like an open chance to type, and then he's more focused on what's going on in the chat rather than what's going on in the class. And that's not necessarily a problem of the class per se, it's more of a problem like my son focusing. But if you were in like a regular classroom, you couldn't just, a lot of classes, you couldn't just be randomly talking the whole time the teacher is talking. You have to sit there and listen. And an open chat area, I think it's just kind of like a temptation for kids who are less focused during a class. So it's kind of like a double-edged sword. For the kids who can focus, it's not a big deal. You kind of have to have it there so the kids can ask questions, but at the same time, not all kids work the same way or, have the same strengths in regards to that. So I don't like that that's always there, and I know my son did have, he was spoken to a couple times, and it was mentioned in one of his reviews that he should be, not using the chat area as his personal, I forget how it was put, but his way to, try to entertain others or whatever. Another thing that bugged me that I didn't even find out until halfway through the year was the way the work was laid out. I had assumed that you would do the work for the week, and then the following week on Tuesday morning, they would discuss the work from the previous week because they had reading and stuff. And for us, Mondays were kind of a low work day in terms of English because Mondays are my son's PE day. By the time we, get up and get ready for the day, it's time for us to leave for PE. And then by the time we get home, it's time for lunch. And then there's a couple hours he does school. And then he has his speaking club. So English was kind of one of those things we didn't plan to do a lot of on Monday because we had the whole rest of the week. And I found out halfway through the year that they were going over that week's work on Tuesday of that week. So they were talking about everything that had happened in the reading before my son had read it. And I don't know. I don't know if I should have assumed that he should have had all the reading done before the class. I don't know if I missed that somewhere. We try to not make him do school on the weekends. It seemed like a good plan to have him read it later in the week because it would be discussed the following week. But like I said, I didn't know until halfway through the year that they were discussing that week's work that week. I thought it would make sense to read it and then the following week they discuss it. I mean, if we had a class later on in the week on like a Thursday or a Friday or something like that, it probably wouldn't even be an issue because, he could read and then, he could read Tuesday and Wednesday or whatever and then it'd be done. But if you have an early class early in the week, then, if all the reading is not done at once, which for some books, if you're reading 4 chapters of A Tale of Two Cities, that's daunting for some kids with, the wording and everything. So that's not something my son wanted to do, and it's not really something I expected of him to get it all done before the class because I didn't know that was an issue. Another thing that was an issue for us, and I highly doubt this is a usual thing, but we had 3 different teachers throughout the course of the class. The very first day of the class, we found out that the instructor for his particular class time was pregnant. And I was kind of overhearing this, listening to the class, just trying to get a feel for the class because it was the first day. And I heard that and I'm thinking, what if there are complications? Reality is there's the possibility of, something happening or not working out, or maybe just after the baby comes she's too busy and then, the class gets kind of pushed aside. But, it was her job to be teaching this class, so I thought, I'm sure she's figured out how she's going to do it. Well, then something else came up before that even became an issue. Something else in her personal life came up, and they needed to bring in a substitute so she could take care of whatever. And then she would come back after like a month or so. So they had the regular teacher for a month and a half, I think, and then they had to bring in the substitute. And then after that month was over, we found out that the regular teacher was not returning. And the substitute was just a substitute, so they needed to bring in another teacher to replace the substitute. So we were, I think, 3 months in. This had happened all by November, and we had started the end of August. So 3 months in, we had already been through 3 teachers. I think what they did was they used one of their history teachers. So they had her teaching the class. And I think she did an okay job. It seemed like maybe she does teach English on this other times or something. I really don't know. I didn't really look into her background or anything like that. But with the switching of teachers, there was also it seemed to me like there were grading issues. Grading was put off as it was, and I don't know if that was because the initial teacher was busy with her life and just didn't get around to it, or maybe she had planned to grade it at a different time. But by the time the substitute came in, I think a lot of things weren't graded, so she was having her help grade. I've been trying to emphasize to my son that if you don't study, if you don't do your work, you're going to get bad grades. And there was one thing he did that he just did not study for it the way he should have. And then we had to, it was like a presentation of like a text from Romeo and Juliet or something. And he just didn't study it. I know he didn't study it. I asked him, oh, did you study? And he goes, oh, yeah, and he didn't study it the way he should have. And then the time came for me to record it, and I didn't put that up because he didn't want me to put it up because of that, because of the fact that he missed some parts in it, and he didn't do it as well as he could have. And I know he could have done a great job if he had studied more, but then they graded it, and I don't know if they're just rushing to get it graded, or if they had intended, if they did a semi-decent job, they were just going to get a good grade anyway. He got 100 on it, and he didn't do a perfect job on it. So I don't really know if that was an issue with leniency in their grading overall, or if it was an issue they were just trying to get everything graded, and they just did a quick look through and didn't really, look at all the specifics of the presentations, just gave all the kids 100. I don't know. So that kind of bothered me, because if I tell him, oh, you don't study and you don't do a good job, you're going to get a bad grade, and then he gets 100, like, that theory kind of goes out the window, and it's just like, well, now what do I do, I didn't really read his essay submissions or anything like that. I just know he wasn't working to the best of his ability. He just wanted to, get it done, get it over with. I know his vocabulary test, he didn't do that well, and it still looked like he had like a 90, a low 90 in terms of his grade. So I know, how am I supposed to tell him, if you don't do your work, you're going to get a bad grade, and then he does barely nothing and he still gets a good grade, That doesn't teach him, the work ethic I'm trying to instill in him. I mean, I know that's something I've got to kind of try to teach him. He thinks I grade too hard. Maybe I do. Maybe, I don't know. I'm just, I've tried to grade things the way things were graded for me. I've tried to give him, like a kind of a rubric and say, you do this, you do this. So that's kind of frustrating for me, teaching other subjects in general. I also thought the writing was kind of not as strong, not as much of a requirement as I thought it was going to be. I guess I assumed that essays were going to be part of the final test for a lot of these books, and they did have an essay at the end of most of them, but the requirement was a single paragraph. I don't think a single paragraph is an adequate essay, especially high school level, and I don't really know if, I took all the honors classes and stuff in high school, so I don't know if for a regular English class a single paragraph essay is a typical requirement, or the requirements just aren't as high as they used to be. I'm not really sure on that, but I was kind of disappointed that, as I was proctoring exams, that he was able to get like an hour test done in like 15 minutes. So I don't really know. Other than that, I don't know. I mean, he read the books. I don't know if I could have done much better. I mean, that's why I wanted him to take class with someone else who was more used to grading this kind of thing, used to teaching this kind of thing. But we won't be using them again this upcoming year. The main reason for that is cost. It's really a pretty expensive class. If you take one class, it's like $495 or something like that. And last year we had a good discount on it, but Overall, we're just not willing to pay that much for the class, and I just don't think it's 100% worth it when that kind of cost can be used to almost buy a full curriculum for the year. So we're not going to use them again this year. I might consider using them again for AP English when he's a senior, but I'll really just have to see how he does with English and how, where we're going to be in, 3 years or wherever when it's time to decide what he's going to be taking for his senior year of high school. So, I don't know, hope that helps some of you out there, and hopefully HSLDA Academy isn't too upset with me saying this. So, thanks for watching. Bye.